They didn't destroy humanity, they restrained it. They taught it to smile while it starved, to applaud while it bled, to call collapse normal. At first, it was subtle. Truth became inconvenient, then offensive, then illegal without being written into law. And by the time anyone noticed, the lie had already grown skin. Narcissism didn't rise, it infected. It learned to speak through confidence, to mimic leadership, to wear charm like a second nervous system. And the world confused performance for divinity. The thieves were easy to recognize at first. They looked what they didn't belong to them. They took what didn't belong to them. Then they stopped taking things and started taking identities, memories, reputations, names, and those who carried conscience, those who still felt the weight of right and wrong, began to glitch in public spaces. They would pause mid-sentence as if something inside them was being overwritten. They were labeled too unstable, too emotional, unfit for structure. But what they meant was simple. You are incompatible with what we have become. And then came the correction phase, not prisons, not chains, worse, normalization. They taught people to call cruelty efficiency, to call detachment strength, to call emptiness peace, and slowly, even love began to sound like a malfunction. Do you know what happens? Do you know what happens when a society loses empathy? It doesn't scream, it rebrands. The good were not destroyed, they were reclassified, softened into invisibility, rewritten as unstable variables in a system that only accepts obedience. And the worst part, they started believing it. The kindness wasn't weakness. The truth was aggression. That awareness was illness. But there are still anomalies. But there are still anomalies. People who remember something they were never taught, a grief with no origin, a knowing with no explanation. They walk through the system like errors it cannot debug. So the system does what all broken systems do. It names them delusional, dangerous, unfit. Because if you cannot be controlled, you must be discredited. Discredited. But listen careful. In every collapse, there is a signal beneath the noise, a frequency that refuses to die. And it says this: you were never broken. You were simply awake inside a system that forgot how to see. They didn't collapse the world overnight. No, they softened it first. They fed it noise instead of truth, validation instead of virtue, image instead of soul. And slowly, humanity forgot what it meant to feel real. Demoralization didn't look like war. It looked like applause for the empty. It looked like thieves wearing crowns, criminals becoming influencers, liars becoming leaders, and the crowd clapped. Narcissism wasn't a flaw anymore. It became currency. Empathy, weakness; integrity, naivety; kindness, a liability. The more hollow you were, the more the system could use you. And those who still carried light Those who refused to bend, they were marked, labeled too sensitive, too intense, too different, unfit for society. But what is a society that rejects its own conscience? What is a world where truth sounds insane and deception feels normal? They built a system where thieves thrive, not because they are powerful, but because they are empty enough to do what others won't. No guilt, no pause, no soul to interrupt the damage. And the ones who see it, who feel the fracture in reality, who refuse to become numb, they don't belong here anymore. Not because they're broken, but because they are awake. In a corrupted world, alignment looks like rebellion. Purity looks like insanity. The truth becomes dangerous, and the truth becomes dangerous. So they call you unfit. Good, because you were never meant to fit into something that lost its humanity. They did not burn the world in one bright moment. No thunderclap, no final war cry in the sky. It was quieter than that. A slow forgetting of what a human eye is for. A gradual learning of how not to feel. The light stayed on. That was a trick. Even as something inside the people dimmed, the cities kept glowing like nothing was dying. They called it progress. They called it freedom, but it felt like a long sedation, a gentle erasure of the soul's original language. And in that silence, between pulses of meaning, something else began to grow. Not evil at first, no, not even that honest. It grew as performance, as image, as the need to be seen without ever being known. Narcissism did not arrive like a storm, it arrived like applause, like mirrors placed in every hand until no one remembered what they looked like without reflection. The loud ones rose easily, the hollow ones rose faster. Those who learned to speak without truth in their chest became fluent in survival. And the world, confused, mistook emptiness for authority. Thieves learned new uniforms. Thieves learned new uniforms. Criminals learned better lighting. They no longer hid in shadows, they curated them. And those who still carried something older inside them, something like conscience, like tenderness, like pause, they began to feel out of place in a world that no longer understood silence. They were not loud enough, not sharp enough, not cleanly shaped for consumption. So the word arrived for them, unfit, a word that did not need violence to warn, only repetition. Unfit for systems that reward emptiness, unfit for rooms that require masks to breathe, unfit for conversations that trade truth for comfort, unfit for a world that has mistaken numbness for peace. And still they try to remain human. They loved with depth that looked like drowning. To those who had forgotten water exists, they spoke with honesty that sounded like chaos. To ears trained only in manipulation, they remembered things others had deleted: the weight of consequence, the cost of harm, the quiet dignity of restraint. But memory became suspicious, feeling became unstable, and so they were labeled again, softer this time, as if cruelty had learned to speak politely. Too sensitive, too intense, too aware, too much. But what is too much in a world that has chosen less and less until nothing remains but functioning mask. And so the inversion completed itself. The numb became leaders, the empty became admired, the unfeeling became safe, while those who still burned with inner fire were told their light was dangerous. They began to disappear, not from space, but from belonging, standing in rooms but not in recognition, speaking but not being translated, existing but not being received. And this, and still the world insisted it was healthy. Still it called itself advanced. Still it smiled with teeth made of branding and control. But beneath it all, something was cracking, not loudly, not visibly, but like glass under pressure that refuses to admit it is breaking. Because there is a truth even systems cannot delete. Humanity does not survive the loss of itself, and those labeled unfit are often the last place where it still exist. They're not broken. They are the reminder of something a world tried to forget, and their refusal to become hollow, they became the witness, the echo, a quiet proof that something real once walked here before the mirrors learned to speak. And one day, when the noise finally collapsed under its own weight, when the applause no longer knows it is applauding, when the mask grew too heavy to hold, it will not be the powerful who remember, it will be the unfit. Standing in the ruins of performance, still carrying the strange, dangerous thing called truth in their trembling hands, not victorious, not dominant, but still human.